ready yet. I'm not ready yet.
What is up, everybody? It's BionicTide here. I'm bringing you another Necromancer guide. You guys have asked for it in my last video, my tips and tricks video, because you saw it in the background there. If you haven't checked that video out, definitely check it out. There is a ton of useful information there, and I will be making a part 2 to that with even more information. Mostly, I would almost call them exploits. But today we're just going to go into our Necromancer build for late game. This is a pretty easy build. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it like I did with my in-depth video for the last one. If you need more information about how to gear around your items, definitely, again, check out that tips and tricks video. But this is going to be specifically how to play the Darkness Necromancer, the way that I play it. Now, I am going to give you a couple options on gearing so that you don't need to use the sacred unique or ancestral uniques that I'm using. You can actually build this with any gear whatsoever. And I think that's a big part that's missing in a lot of these guides is they all use very specific gear. That it's 1 in a million if you're going to find that gear with those stat rolls. So I'm going to teach you how to build a really nice solid endgame build that doesn't require very many specifics. So let's get right into it. Gearing wise, this is very important on the aspects, but as I'll show you in a minute, they're really easy to obtain. I'm going to quick run through it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. Blight to pull everything in with this aspect. It kind of works almost like a corpse tendrils without spending the points on corpse tendrils, and it does interrupt enemies. So you can kind of CC them with that. Bone Storm will turn into a barrier every time it hits an enemy, and then we're going to stack that with Bone Storm becoming a darkness skill and extended Bone Storm per corpse that Bone Storm touches, up to 8 seconds. Now, those 3 things together will mean that we have a really long-lasting Darkness Bone Storm that also gives us a shield for the entire duration as long as we're hitting someone. Next thing we're going to do is work on getting our darkness damage increased, and that's going to come mainly from our weapon here. As you can see, this imprint increases our darkness damage by 240% after we reach a set number of stacks, which we get instantly, and our amulet here, and again, this increases our darkness damage within, so many seconds of already hitting with another darkness ability, basically allowing us to stack this 54%, in my case, you could go up to 60%, 5 times in a row. This is going to be the majority of our damage boost, these 2 items. The Bone Storm is going to basically just work as our shield, or our oh shit button, if you will. And then the majority of our damage is going to come from our Corpse Explosion. And we're also going to use our skill points to turn our Corpse Explosion into a darkness ability as well. So with all of those things stacked, we're going to be relying heavily on Shadow Blight to increase all of our darkness damage. I'm going to give you a quick pan of my entire skill tree here, so that if you want, you can copy the skills right out of there. Otherwise, I will have it all listed in the description for this video with a link to the GG build. But there it is. Again, key components here. We're using Blight to pull enemies in and start our combo out. We're also CCing with Blight. And another one is right here. We're also CCing with all of our darkness damage. Now, we also have our Golem out, which I'll show you here. And we're not sacrificing him for the 30% bonus damage. I know you could do that. You could get your numbers into the millions very easily. Just do that and then add the corpse tendrils instead of the golem. But the reason we're keeping the golem is because when you get to the late end game, you really don't need a whole lot of damage. What you need is sustainability and being able to tank lots of things at once. And that's really where this build shines. The more enemies we have on screen, the better. So for our skills, we're going Corpse Explosion as our main damage source, Decrepify to get the lucky hit and get our cooldowns back quickly. Bone Storm, again, this pairs with all of our shields to kind of form our oh button if things really get bad. And just in case that's not enough, we can actually go back and forth between Bone Storm and Blood Mist, which we're also taking, just so that we can have infinite sustainability and there's never a moment where we come close to dying. We're also going to be generating more corpses with our Blood Mist as well, which is just nice for Necromancer because, you know, we live on the corpses. Blight is going to be our other source of damage, but it's also, again, another form of CC. We can immobilize enemies on impact, but we also pull them with that helmet, the helmet modification that we have here. And that little pull that you'll see happen a lot is actually a really hard form of CC as well. So between all of those CCs, and then our golem also stuns when he slams. So yes, we are using our golem for vulnerability, which is definitely a huge thing. But the main thing, and the reason why we're not going with any other way of doing vulnerability, because we could easily do that with corpse tendrils, right, is because our golem is going to AoE stun a massive area and kind of start off every combo with a bunch of CC'd enemies, and they don't tend to resist him. So you'll notice as you play the game and you get higher level and start trying to push the limits of your higher level content, that enemies that are much higher level than you can actually resist your CCs. And this goes double for PvP. If you're trying to PvP people who are level 100 and you're only level 85, they're going to resist most of your CCs and even a lot of your damage. But the golem, he doesn't tend to get resisted nearly as much as a lot of our own CCs. And it also frees us up to do some pretty gnarly stuff with his vulnerability. And then we don't need to spend the points on the corpses. And he's also just kind of a nice tank. He's really good, really, really good to have around. But that stun is really handy, and you'll see that come into play a lot here. The only other thing I would say, right now I have this spawning blood orbs because I'm too lazy to use potions. You could get added defense here if you really wanted. Any form of added defense would work here. And for my alternate set, which we will run to the stash here and grab that. I'll show you for my alternate set. Sometimes I use this. It's good, right? It keeps my bones. You can't use the blood orbs one on your gauntlets, so I had to make a completely alternate set for the ring and the gauntlets. But basically, I've just swapped my Bone Storm extension from my ring to a pair of gauntlets, and then put the blood orbs reduce your ultimate cooldown on the ring. Which is nice because you can basically keep your Bone Storm up infinitely that way. But you'll notice that when we're in combat and we're fighting a lot of enemies, we can kind of do that anyways. And these gloves, the Howl from Below, are just a lot more fun. But I will show you both ways to do it. I personally like Howl from Below because it opens up some alternate playstyles as well. You can actually play ranged with Corpse Explosion. The enemies don't have to be standing right on the corpses when you detonate them. You can just send a trail of undead Al-Akbars at them. And it will take care of business from the other side of the room. The enemies can be outside of your screen, and the corpses can be outside of your screen, and the enemies can be even further than that, and you can really probably get one of the longest range setups in the game. So we'll go into all of that, but without further ado, I'm going to jump over to some gameplay here and show you exactly how this looks in action. Before we jump into the gameplay section here, I did want to go over the Paragon board because I know a lot of people ask about that, and you can really kind of freestyle it with your Paragon board, but I will point out some important nodes that I like to get first. So we'll go over just the rare nodes. First things first, we got to get the 20% damage. Now, I come back down because I like having the extra tankiness, so I come back down for all the extra life. But then we're going to socket in Gravekeeper on our first socket, because what that's going to do is actually give us 2 rare nodes within range without even having to level up our Gravekeeper glyph. Now, if you do level up your Gravekeeper glyph, there are a lot of other options, but we really want to focus on leveling up some other glyphs first. So this is a nice way to just start the board with extra offense and extra defense right away, because this will hit both of these rare nodes. Next, we're going to work our way up the board. You could go to either side here. I like going the willpower side because that'll come into play later on, because there's not many times where we get strength that's just on our way, and it's going to be needed for some of these glyphs up here. But we're going to go straight to the Wither board, and we're going to rotate it so that Wither is closest to us, because we want to get this skill right away. And then on our way over, we'll pick up the damage reduction to enemies that are shadow damaged, because that's basically all the damage that we do. And again, here's where that dexterity and stuff starts coming into play. But then we're going to rotate up here a little bit and get the extra life, because again, it's all about tankiness in the end game. And once we get that, we'll come up and go over for Gnawing Darkness, which is just a really good extra damage on all of our shadow abilities, but also extra damage of all kinds to elites. Then we're going to come over and start working our way towards our glyph socket here, and we're going to get more shadow damage on the way over. And when we get up there, we're going to socket in our darkness glyph, because all the willpower again that we need without even leveling up the glyph is going to be right in this section that we start with, so we can immediately get that second perk on it. And then, of course, with these glyphs, I socket them in here so that we can get the full benefit right away, but don't hesitate to level up your glyphs, because they do actually do more damage per slot that you have. So in this case, willpower that we have, they will do more overall damage. But this way you can get the second perk right away, and then we're going to also pick up this extra free 20% shadow damage here and start working our way back down so that we can get to another board. For our next board, we're going to get Flesh Eater, and the only thing that we really want on this board is Flesh Eater, so we're going to grab that right away, and then we're going to start working our way up for the free damage. And here we'll get the damage to injured enemies and the crit strike damage. And then we're going to start working our way back down, grab the Flesh Eater, and then we're going to work our way over to socket in our own glyph, in which case I would put Scourge here, because again, we will have all of the willpower recommended, or required rather, for the second perk on that within the starting range without having to level the glyph up. But again, I would level the glyph up just because you do get more out of it for doing so. And then we're going to grab Targeted as well. And then we're going to head down the board. You can grab the Resistance, but we really don't use a whole lot of Resistance, as we tend to just iframe every type of magic spell. So you can bypass that and work your way straight down or straight out. But once you come into another board, because again, we don't really need either of these. They're not terribly recommended. So you could just go straight out of this board from here over to the right. And once we get to another board here, what I would recommend is either Hulking Monstrosity to add a lot of sustainability to our golem and damage, more so the damage than the sustainability, because our golem dies all the time and he comes right back. The nice thing about having that Bone Spirit and that Blood Mist is we're not really dependent on our golem being alive to CC the enemies. We also have our Blight that we can spam over and over to keep enemies locked into one spot and stop them from moving or attacking. So we're not really dependent on our golem. He's just really nice to have. And he can basically resummon almost instantly anyways. But this will help you not have to do that as often and give him a massive damage bonus. Not just in the legendary node, but we would pick up all of these golem damage nodes along the way as well. and there are a lot of them. The other option would be Scent of Death. Scent of Death is going to give us a lot more damage in our kit, including crit strike damage and damage to injured enemies, as well as more shadow resistance and maximum life. I wouldn't really recommend any of the other ones. If I had to choose another board, and again, I really wouldn't recommend doing it, but I would do Blood Begets Blood because we are picking up a lot more blood orbs than the average build. So this synergizes really nicely with that, giving us additional damage and additional sustainability. That being said, let's get into the gameplay. Now, something worth noting is that I am throwing in a bunch of underleveled gear here, just to show you how easy this dungeon really is, even with underleveled gear. So the gear I showed you earlier was a little bit higher than this. Some of this isn't even 700. But watch how easily we clear this anyways.
Ready yet.
And from here out, I'll kind of skip ahead a little bit and just give you the highlights so that we don't turn this into a giant video.
I need more time.
So yeah, I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Be sure to smash that like and subscribe button. Comment too if you want to. Until next time, take it easy. You still here, huh? You lost? Oh, I know. You're looking for the website because you wanted some artwork. It's right up at the very top of the page there. No, that wasn't it. Maybe you're looking for the Twitch website. Okay, it's going to be over on the right. The video might have popped up by now, so you might have to rewind. That wasn't it either. Listen, I'm not really sure how to help you. Why don't you join the Discord, rewind the video, and you'll see it right behind the pop-up.